Okay, to get started, you can see that I have two of your images in separate layers in Photoshop. First thing I'm going to do is do an adjustment layer because I think they're a little bit dark, so we're going to use a curves layer. And we're just going to brighten things up a bit. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is take the opacity down on this layer just so that I can see the layer behind it. And you can see that the one layer is quite a bit smaller with the apple compared to the background layer. So what I'm going to do is hit Control T to come up with a free transform. And then I'm going to hold the Shift key down and adjust that until we get the apple a little bit closer to the same size. Since I can't see my little handles anymore on the upper and lower corners, what I'm going to do is hit Control 0. And then that'll give me my handles back, and I can enlarge things a little bit more. We're going to say that's good enough. Double click within the square. That'll lock the free transform in. Now we can bring back the full opacity. If we turn this off, we can see that the apple is about the same size. So on this layer, what we're going to do is a quick select. So we're going to pick the quick selection tool. We're going to select the background. We're going to add to the selection by hitting the Shift key. We're going to select the rest of the background. Looks like Photoshop is slowing down a bit on me. And then what we're going to do is let that fix, and then we're going to add this little sliver to it. And once again, to add, we're hitting the Shift key. Now I want to subtract this little bit up here, so we're going to hit the Alt key. And we're going to subtract that little bit. I guess we got a little bit of overlap here. That's fine. Then what we're going to do is hit the mask button. Going to give it a mask, but you can see that it's reversed, so it's Control I to invert that. And then what we're going to do is clean things up. So it's just brush with the black paint. We're going to paint out what we don't want. And for the most part, you know, that looks pretty good. I would imagine if we really enlarged it, we would start seeing some doubles, but for this, I'm not going to get too carried away. So you can see that that doesn't look too bad, and that we can move that independently. Of course, if we move it, the apple comes back, which is going to influence, but we can either brush that away So let's do that. Yeah, my Photoshop is really slowing down. So let's try to brush that away. Well, we're having trouble here. So all we're doing is filling the mask in, getting rid of the apple. So now with the free transform tool, if we do Control T again, Control 0 to see our handles, and if we hit Control, we can adjust each handle separately. To give us a little bit different shape there. So if we double click within the box, that'll set that. So now what we would have to do is go in and clean up that free transform. And here I'm just hitting the X key and I'm changing from white to black to bring back or erase what I want or don't want. We can also, let's go back to black. We can get rid of some of this from the top image so that we have more of the splash in there. Of course, this is just quick and dirty. So now if we duplicate this layer, I'm going to duplicate the whole layer. If we duplicate the whole layer, mask and everything, now we can go to Control T again, so we're in the free transform. If we right click within the square, we can come up with our controls, so we can flip horizontal and move that around, or use the free transform again to make it fit where you want it to, change its shape, what have you. So if we right click again, we can go in and change just about anything we want to change. Control 0 so we can see the handles. And my Photoshop is really slowing down. Let's pretend that that's okay. And then I'm just going to go in and clean this up again. Got to make sure we're on the mask. And like I said, this is quick and dirty, so it's not going to look fabulous by anyone's stretch of the imagination. Okay, now if we get rid of all this. And so that we're on the background layer, we're going to make that an independent layer by double clicking on it and just changing it into a layer. So now if we select the background on this, then we're going to do Shift so we can add to our selection. We'll add this. Now we're going to refine the selection just by adding or subtracting. Okay, so let's say we have that selected. Now let's go down into here. Okay, let's say we have that selected. What I'm going to do is hit Control J, and let's undo that. So Control Z. I'm going to invert my selection. Control J again. So now all I have is the apple and the splash selected. So if we go up to Free Transform, Edit, Free Transform, or Control T. I'm going to do Control 0 so we can see all the handles. And hidden over here, it's not going to show me unless, so we're going to do it this way. But up here, if I had my full screen open, there would be a little icon you could choose also. But we'll go to Free Transform, Transform, or Edit Transform. And then we're going to do Warp. By bringing up Warp, you can control these points to help you shape your splash. And of course you don't want the apple there because you're going to mess the apple up. And you can grab parts of the wire frame and move the splash around and shape it. And then by double clicking, I think I'm having Photoshop issues again. So let's so you can see this icon here. That'll bring you to the same thing. So if we click the set check, so now we've reshaped the splash. The other way to do that, if we undo it, we'll go to history, we'll undo that transform. You can also do what's called a puppet warp. So if you go to Edit, Puppet Warp, it'll give you a wire frame on the entire splash. And what you do is you set pins. So you take your cursor, and let's say you want a pin right there. And what that pin is if it's not selected, it's an anchor point. If it's selected, you can actually move it. So if we put another pin, well, let's put a pin down here at the end. You see how it moves around that anchor point, which is the first pin we put in. But now let's say we put in a couple more pins, and now you can move just this arm of the splash. Or you can take this and move it, and then add another anchor point there and move that around. And add an anchor point there and an anchor point there. And you can just go crazy. And you can, by hitting the shift key or holding the shift key down, you can select a number of anchor points and move them as a group. And if you try to do an anchor point too close, nope, I have it set. It's allowing me to do it. Normally, this must be something new for this version. They've changed this a little bit. But anyways, you can see how that works. And then by clicking the checkbox again, we can get to it here. Yeah, they changed this on me. Yeah, I'm having Photoshop issues. Sorry about that, but there should be a checkbox up there. But just by picking another tool, it asked me if I wanted to apply, so we applied it. But you can see that you can control the drops any way you want to. So that's your original picture. This is with some of the drops changed. So if we add a mask to that, get rid of the double apple. So now you can see that we have the apple, we have the original drops. We can add the other splashes in. So now we have drops that have been changed, duplicates of splashes, and it just needs a quick crop. I hope this helped. Sorry I'm having so much trouble with Photoshop doing this. But I hope that helps. And if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me.